Hello to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. Today you find me on a road in a car driving from Bathurst to Sofala. So I'm about to turn into Sofala. It's been a lovely drive from Sydney, but for those who are not aware, Sofala is between just out of Bathurst by about 30 k's, and it's an old gold mining town, a tiny town now, but at one point in time during its heyday it boasted 60 pubs and thousands of people. It's perched on the bank here of the river, the Turon River, and as you can see, we're just going into the town now. It's a tiny town, but it was once, as I said before, the envy of the world back in the mid 1850s, where people travelled from near and far, from all over the world in search of gold, of search of that promised future. And every now and then you'd get somebody who'd find a decent sort of nugget which would stimulate and fuel much more mania and frenzied digging and searching. At the moment now we've got a general store which is open. We've got a single pub, remembering that there were about 60 pubs here at one point in time, and a lot of old, small, rusted out buildings. So what I'm going to do is just go around the top end as well, just to show you. I've got a few motorcycles coming through, so I'll let them go through. But what we'll do is we'll do a ride and talk. I'll follow these guys here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a book summary, and one day I'd love to come here with my motorbike, actually take a ride with a few of my mates and come to Sofala. There's a lot of beautiful windy country roads, and it is really exciting. And at the end of this road behind us, if you go back the other way, there's a track which goes through 35 kilometres of private land, and it's not a clear way, it's a shared access is the word I'm looking for, which enables vehicles to go from the other side there at Capety on the Castlereagh Highway and come through to Sofala. But you go through some of the most beautiful countryside that is available here in Australia. So what I'll do now is I'll bid farewell to Sofala one more time, and we'll head back towards Bathurst. So where these bikes are, I'm going to hang a left. I hope they're going the same way. So we'll hang a left together, and I'll follow them for as far as we can go, and we'll go through and do a book summary. And the book summary that I've got for today is entitled Not Fade Away by an author known as Peter Barton. And it's a really interesting book. It's a lovely book which focuses on the importance of being kind to others and being kind to yourself, because the lingering impact that cruelty and bad behaviour has on people's development and people's futures is quite traumatic and long-suffering. So the author goes on here to say something really profound, and it's something that we should all maybe consider in our lives in terms of where we're heading and what we're achieving. You could be a CEO, you can be a multi-millionaire, you can be the most popular person on Instagram or Facebook. There's a whole stack of things that you can boast about and stroke your ego with. But the author here makes a point which is profound, as I said. And he says that the surest way of gauging your impact and how your life has impacted others is to see how many lives of other people you've touched in a positive way. So a lot of people can go through life and make, as I say, millions of dollars and lots of money and be very, very popular. But how many lives have you touched in a meaningful way? Who wants to be the multi-millionaire whose children don't speak to him, or whose siblings don't want to have anything to do with him or her, or who has a bad reputation and people don't want to spend time with? Doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter how famous you once were, you're only as good as the next life that you touch. And hopefully you touch in a positive, productive and welcoming way. At the end of the day, we're all given the gift of life to live and to make a difference, a positive difference. It's not about getting what you want in life, because that in itself makes life very, very selfish, and you'll have a path of destruction in your wake. The meaningful life from a Christian perspective, all I can talk about is a Christian perspective, because that's what I try and do. Work in progress. Trying is the purpose of a Christian life is to worship and to glorify God with all your heart, mind and soul, and also to serve your neighbour and to love your neighbour as you love yourself. And hopefully you love yourself in a positive and empowering and productive way, so that you can love your neighbour in a similar sort of way. There's a bit of a message there. If you don't love yourself, if you don't like yourself, if you hate yourself, then you're not going to be all that good at being loving to your neighbour, to your family, to your peers, to your friends, to your parents, because it's all about serving and loving God and serving and loving each other, and of course loving yourself in a non-egotistical way. So as a parent and as a leader, we need to be very, very careful with what we do, what we say, and how we interact with other people, especially children, because we can have, as we said before, a massive positive impact, but most probably we could probably have a most powerful negative impact on their lives by being hurtful and not being patient and not being in a position to support them during those difficult times. It was only last night when I was talking to my daughter Catherine and Alex, and we're just chatting about a situation where a family is having some problems with one of their younger children. And I reflected for a moment. I got out of parent mode and bossy boots mode, know everything mode. I just reflected on my own life and the life of all of my friends and people around me. And the reflection was that when we were growing up and going to school, they were very challenging years, very challenging times. You'd go away on school holidays at the end of the year and you'd come back, and some people had grown taller, other people had lost some weight, some people had changed their teeth, friendships had changed, and there was all of this change, all of this upheaval that you had to somehow deal with. And then at the same time, you needed to find a way to fit in with people, with your friends, with your teachers. And if you had a bad reputation with the teachers, they'd come down on you like a ton of bricks. Obviously in the common room, they'd be talking about a particular student, and they'd all team up and try and break that student's spirit. And I did recall, and I did say this to my daughter and her husband, that it's quite challenging growing up as a young person, trying to find your way in the world, and dealing with what life serves you up, let alone having to deal with the problems of your own particular family, given the level of divorce that is happening in the world, the number of broken families where parents are competing for their children's love with the other parent, and just a tug of war, an emotional tug of war is taking place, with the ultimate price being the emotional, the spiritual, the physical health and the social health of that young child. So this book is all about doing the right thing for yourself and for your children, and making sure that you are going to contribute in a positive way, in a positive, meaningful way to their growth and development. And when they look back over the years, they will see you as a partner in their growth and development, as opposed to a prisoner or a person who they hate, or somebody who got them to miss out on some elementary, that important and powerful developmental steps through those important years of their lives. It's important to realise, and for us to appreciate, that children are easily hurt. Their feelings are easily hurt. And just the way you look at them, just the way you behave towards them, the tone of voice that you use can have a huge impact on their already troubled lives, where their self-esteem may be going through some learning bursts. They may be feeling bad about themselves. What they need from us adults, from parents, from families, is a port, a harbour that can offer them the necessary shelter when it's required. But by the same token, we also need to be the wind in their sails to help them propel and to move to that next developmental port, where they can take shelter again for enough time as it's required for them to move on to their next port and to their next port, so they can continue to grow and develop. And to also remember and to make a point of recalling that what we say and do can last a lifetime. If you scold a child, they can hold on to that for a lifetime and resent you for a lifetime, even though they won't tell you, even though they won't show it to you, deep down, maybe even subconsciously, they may resent you and resist you and not listen to you to their disadvantage over a number of years. So sometimes it's better just to zip it, bite your tongue, let some things slide, because you know, I know, when we do something wrong, we understand it, we get it. You don't need somebody to remind you over and over again that you're stuffed up. You know yourself that you're stuffed up, unless you're completely stupid. Sometimes by offering advice at the wrong time is counterproductive and counterintuitive. I remember learning that with dolphin trainers, the way to get the best and the most out of a dolphin is to offer it rewards, and the way you offer those rewards also has a massive impact. So when you're training a dolphin, the dolphin trainers normally coax the dolphin into performing a particular trick, and when it performs that trick, they give it a fish or a piece of squid. But the trick is, from the dolphin trainer's perspective, is that you also need to keep the dolphins keen to want to continue doing tricks, otherwise they'll get bored. So one of the tricks that the dolphin trainers incorporate in their training regime is that they offer jackpots, where every now and then when a dolphin does a trick, they may give it 5 or 6 fishes at the one time. So the dolphin doesn't know when the next jackpot reward is going to come, and hence they keep on delivering on their tricks and stay keen for as long as the dolphin trainer needs them to stay keen. And similarly, children too, they need to be rewarded, and sometimes they need to get a jackpot reward even when they don't deserve it, because by giving a reward or giving a jackpot when they don't deserve it, keeps them keen, keeps them in your favor. They want to work with you. So it's something to consider, that it's not just black and white, it's not just binary. When a kid does something good, you reward them, and when they do something bad, you punish them. Sometimes you just need to reward them and to talk to them and to let them know that they belong, that they are loved, that life isn't a straight line and it goes in zigzags, just like a plane never flies in a straight line, but the pilot or the autopilot needs to continually adjust and recalibrate the pathway to stay on course, because at any point in time it's probably off course. But we can adjust the sails to achieve the necessary outcome, and not every day is going to be perfect, and that we shouldn't be striving for perfection, but what we should be striving for is improvement. We should be striving for progress, not perfection, but progress, because the whole concept of perfection is flawed, because we live in a world which is constantly being churned, which is constantly being interrupted, disrupted. So if you ever think that you've reached perfection and you just get comfortable, then you're in for a rude awakening and a rude shock. So there you go. Thank you very much for listening to me up until now. Let's see what else we can learn. The other thing that we need to teach our children and to be part of and to try and help develop is this sense of a shared community and connection. It's more important for people to feel connected and to be connected, because just like a horse whisperer. Now, we talked about the dolphin trainer. Now I'm going to talk about horse whisperers. A horse whisperer teaches a horse its tricks or tames a horse, knowing very well the horse's nature. And a horse, just like humans, a horse is very social in nature and wants to be with other living things, wants to be with other horses, wants to be with other living people. So the first thing that a horse whisperer does in order to get the horse to respond and to get it on board is to push it away, to ignore it, to make it feel unwelcomed, to do things which are counterintuitive, reverse psychology. And they do that over and over again until it gets to the point where the horse wants to come close, wants to be connected. Because we know that horses, just like humans, want to feel and be connected. So we use that to our advantage. We use it to manipulate the situation, and slowly but surely the horse will get tamer and tamer, and then you start to reward it and do all the other things that we've talked about. The other thing that the author talks about here, which is a good one, my mother used to say this to me as well: problems that can be fixed with money are not real problems. I'll just pause in silence for you to think about that. Problems that can be fixed with money are not real problems. The real problems that we have in our life are the ones that impact our health, our physical health, our social health, our relationship health, our spiritual health, our mental health. All of those things, they're the things that money can't fix. So what the author here is saying is that we need to be attuned to the many aspects of health in our family, in our community, in ourselves, and address those. And it's easy to be trapped in life. Sometimes, as my mother used to say again, she used to say that a drowning person will grab themselves from their hair to try and save themselves. It's easy to get trapped in life, and that's why it's important for each and every one of us to be there for ourselves, of course, for our partners, for our children, and for our families. Because there are different times in life that people will feel trapped, even though that entrapment may not be a real trap. It may be just a trap of the mind. How often do you know people who come up with all these issues, all these problems, that you say to yourself, that really isn't a problem, and you can talk them through it, and once you apply a bit of logic and a bit of rationality, then things are much clearer for them, because we know very, very well that the majority of fears that people have are fake fears, are irrational fears. Those fears, uncertainty and doubts that we inherit from our parents, our friends, our families, our schools, our educational institutions, the media, conspiracy theorists, the majority of that will not come of age. Less than 10% of all of the fears that we have in our lives will ever materialize. So what we're saying is that all the things that we dread are just a figment of our imagination, a figment that is not real, that can be rationalized away, can be talked away, can be shut out and ignored, and you won't have to worry about it because nothing will happen. So the bottom line is that we need to manage our beliefs and to know that it's easier to change the belief of one person than to change an organisation. And we need to be selective. We need to be discerning with what we do, with what we say, and to ourselves and to others. Because, as we said, and as we've noted, and as we've felt ourselves in our lives, how many people do you know in your life that made you feel bad? You know, the way people make us feel is an enduring legacy, even well after they pass away. You know, there are people in my life who have passed away, and I remember all the ways they made me feel in a positive way. You know, the experiences we had together. You know, those football coaches, those uncles, those aunts, grandparents, my parents. Remembering that they made me feel good about myself. Of course, they made me feel bad about myself in situations, but when you look back, you know that that was an act of love. But those times where they made you feel special, you just can't give up on that. They just colour your life in Technicolor, in all the beautiful pastels. So the next point that the author makes is that you can go off track one step at a time. And as a friend of mine that I used to work with used to always say, and it's a powerful point, you know, one step leads to another, or one thing leads to another, and then before you know it, you've reached the point where you know you've completely changed, and you can no longer recognise that person that you see in the mirror. And we don't want to get there. We don't want to live with regret. We don't want to get to the point in our lives where we look back over our lives and we don't recognise the person. I often say that this woke media, the woke community, we've got to the point in our lives now where all of the things that I knew that were absolutely right in my life, people now are trying to convince me that I'm wrong. And all the things that I knew that I despise as being completely wrong, the woke community now want to try and convince me that they're bloody right. Talk about confusion. But at the end of the day, we've got to stick to our values, we've got to stick to our principles, so that, as we said, the person that we look at in the mirror every morning when we get up to brush our teeth and to shave, for those who shave, is the person that we continue to recognise, and not a complete and utter stranger who we no longer remember who they once were. So be careful of the values, be careful of what you do. Make sure you're congruent. You live a life where your actions align to your values and your beliefs, and that you live a authentic life without trying to be the chameleon, to be one person to one particular group and a different person to other groups, because by doing that you're living a lie, and you're living a diplomatic life. You know, diplomats, people who are diplomatic, you know, in one way are evil, because what they're doing is they're telling you what you want to hear. They're not telling you what they believe or what they support, but they're just playing you for a fool. You gain nothing from a diplomat. You gain nothing by being diplomatic. You can zip your mouth and not say anything, but to tell people what they want to hear just to win them over and to suck them in is in itself an act of non-integrity. So the call to action from this author is to live with integrity where you can, and to do the right thing by the people around you, to offer feedback, that is justified, but to offer it with a soft heart, with a soft hand, and not to be abrupt and aggressive with it, because people don't know where you're coming from, and they will hold on to it for much longer than what it was intended to be held on to. The other thing the author says is that we shouldn't be too obsessed with the details and be clueless about the big picture. We need to try and have a general guide, have a general feel for what we want to try and achieve, not be too detailed, and to be flexible in our approach so that we can deal with the disappointments, the potholes, the distractions that'll come in our way from left field and from the people that are close to us as well. We mustn't give up. We must continue to do what we're doing as long as it serves us, because giving up is admitting defeat, and we don't want to give up and be defeated. We want to give up because we decided that it wasn't serving us at this particular point, and we wanted to do it for an important and justified reason. Because by giving up time and time again, what you're doing is you're learning how to lose. We need to learn how to accept things, because we are, at the end of the day, responsible and accountable for where we are at this time of our lives. If you feel it's somebody else's mistake or problem, then you're, misguided, because you're the one who lives your life. You're the CEO of your life. You can make decisions, you can make choices, knowing that there are going to be certain consequences, but you don't have to do what other people tell you to. What you need to do is to assess the first, second, and third level consequences and decide what to do. But most importantly, the author here reminds us that sometimes we just need to accept our calling. We just need to accept and not fight our lives, and know that our lives are going to have ups and downs. Life is going to be like a zigzag, just like the share market, just like the property market. It'll step up, it'll step down, it'll move to the side, left, right, over, under, through. But at the end of the day, over 10, 20, 30 years, it'll move towards that trend that it is building. So as my manager at IBM, Greg Leeson, once told me, he says, "James, don't worry, mate," he says, "you'll end up where you're heading. Just make sure you're heading where you want to be heading, and just keep on making small steps, and eventually you will meander and you will get there." And the last few points from this book is to understand that life is made of moments. They're made of moments that we need to take advantage of, that we need to capture, because those moments that we have, this moment that I have, if it slips through my fingers, it's gone forever. When I was young, in high school, the first book that I ever read cover to cover was an Australian novel by Randolph Stow called the Merry-Go-Round in the Sea. And that book was all about talking about the seasons of life, the circle of life, and the important realization that things change, people change, circumstances change, the environment changes, climate changes, always has, always will be. History changes. some things, you know, eventually have a certain sort of genre about them and a flavour. Just like characters, people have got certain characters, but sooner or later people mellow, people change, people reform. As we get older, you know, people become more humble, and the bottom line is that there is change abound, and what we need to do is to realise that things are changing, and things are changing continuously, and to embrace change with both hands, all 10 fingers and both arms, and clutch it close to our bodies so that we can make the most of each and every moment as it presents itself, and then catch the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. Just like these trees here are changing with autumn, soon it'll be winter. Next time I come here, it could be spring, it could be springtime again, and I'll be back green and in full colour again from a cyclical perspective. And I guess the last points to come out of this book here is to know, is to embrace things and not to worry about things too much, and to spend more time with the people that you love, to spend more time doing the things that you enjoy, to spread the good word, to serve God, to serve each other, and to know that if we get sick, if we get cancer, for example, that sooner or later the cancer will kill itself. Not only will it kill us, but it will also kill itself at the same time. So we just need to accept certain things in our lives and just get on with it, and just believe and trust in God's providence, and know that He has a bigger and better plan for each and every one of us, and the best is yet to come for each and every one of us. Take care, everybody. It's been a long one, but I've enjoyed doing this one, and I'm just coming into Bathurst now, and as you can see, it's a cloudy sort of day, but it's been pleasant for driving. And what I'm going to do is, now that I come into Bathurst, I'm going to take the road towards the Jenolan Caves and swing through Oberon on my way back to Sydney, and maybe just spend a little bit of time in Jenolan Caves just to make the most of this Sunday. It's 12:30. We'll see how we go. Take care, yasas, and bye for now.